Hey, good to see you again. In the last video that I put on, I did this kind of general thing about how to read the Bible, and perhaps how to read the Bible in the Old Testament in a different way than you're used to reading. Oftentimes we read little segments or paragraphs, or we hear stories here and there, but we don't hear the whole story in its context. And so we get a skewed sense of, oh, it's irrelevant, there's all these weird things, or it just relates to the history of Israel or something like that. So last time we talked about story and viewing the whole Old Testament as story, and a story that's being told to actually convince us of a worldview that's better than some other worldviews in its time. And as we read it today, it actually challenges some of the assumptions we have in worldviews that we have today. Whether that be an atheistic worldview or a materialistic worldview, or our views of success and our views of what the problems of the world are and those kinds of things. So remember, as you read the Bible, this is a comprehensive story that moves from Genesis through Malachi in the Old Testament, and there is a common story that's being told. And so what I want to do in this short video is just spend a little bit of time relating that whole idea of story to the Old Testament itself. So I'm going to give you a slideshow behind this to kind of show you like how the Old Testament lays out, and how this storyline might help us understand the worldview that the Old Testament is trying to portray and trying to offer us as we think about God and faith and what's wrong with the world and where we find ourselves and who we are and why we're here, all those kinds of questions. So let me put the slideshow on here and go from there. You see here I've put together a chart that kind of gives us an overall survey of the Old Testament. The Old Testament is 39 different books. They're arranged in a different order in the Hebrew Bible as opposed to how we've ordered them in the Protestant Bible or the Catholic Bible. The books are just in some different order. You'll read in your reading of Banskra that the Hebrew way of putting the Old Testament together, they use the word Tanakh, which describes the three major sections. And there's the section of the Torah, which on my chart is the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of the Old Testament. There's the Nevi'im, which is the prophets. In the Hebrew collection, the historical narratives are called the former prophets, and what's listed on my chart as prophets are called the later prophets. So you'll see that, and you'll come across that as you do your reading. And then there's the Ketuvim, which is what I call the poetry and wisdom, but it actually means in Hebrew just the writings. So these are different types of literature, and it's how the Old Testament is arranged in the Hebrew Bible. In our Bibles, it lays out, you would see it more like this. There's Genesis that starts out the whole story. And again, if you think of this all as a story from beginning to end, it's actually a lot of different episodes. It's actually more like going to see Harry Potter, film 1, film 2, film 3, or Star Wars 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 20, or how many they're at now. It's like a series of stories, but there's a sense in which each story stands on its own, but it also connects with the greater story. So that's the way you want to read through the Old Testament, seeing how does the context of the whole help you understand how the individual books and the individual stories fit together. So if you look at the whole Old Testament, you'll find that there's these 39 books. In Genesis chapter 1 through 11, there's really a beginning point to the story. And what happens in Genesis 1 through 11 sets up the whole rest of the narrative. So in Genesis 1 and 2, there's creation. And in chapter 3, then there's this sin of humanity, a rejection against God. And then we see in 4 through 11 how that sin of humanity expands and how more and more people, the whole world is set against God. In this storyline of the Old Testament, God's reordering of his creation and world becomes the focus. How does God get things back to what he meant it to be in chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Genesis? That's what all of the story is about. And so we see that story in Genesis through Deuteronomy, in this Pentateuch, or Torah, if you will. There's the story of how God worked with Noah, how he worked with Abraham and a person and a patriarch and a family, and then how he works with a people, the people of Israel, and how he works with people like Moses as a leader, and how he forms this nation, and how he works with leadership through Joshua and the judges and the kings. All of that history of Israel is a story that's in the context of how do we solve the problem of Genesis 3 through Genesis 11. Then the prophets are arranged. I put the chart here because this is the way the books are arranged in our English Bible. The prophets, the actual historical events of the prophets, happen during these the Joshua through the Kings books, and so in terms of timeline, the prophets really go with the historical narratives and the times when they were proclaiming their words from the Lord. The poetry and wisdom section is what Bandstra will call the writings, and those are like Psalms and Proverbs, Job, Ecclesiastes, and some other books in there. And again, you'll be reading more detail about these sections. These are the 4 different weeks that we'll look at across the semester as we look at these different components. But you want to ask yourself this as you're reading in the Old Testament. You want to ask yourself, how does the Pentateuch, how does Genesis through Deuteronomy answer the question, how do they try to get back to what God created the world to be in chapter 1 and 2? How do they deal with the problem of sinful humanity? And how does this worldview, how is it different than other cultures of the ancient Near East? You'll be reading in Bandstra and you'll hear some other cultures that saw it very differently. They had multi-gods, not one God. So the Pentateuch lays out a belief in one God, monotheism. It says that the problem of the world, all those questions of worldview that we visited in the last video, those are here. Where are we? How's it supposed to be? What's the problem? And how does it get solved? That's what the Old Testament's shooting to do. How does it get solved? Well, God does something to reorder his creation. It was supposed to be a certain way, but it's messed up. So how does this, the stories that we're reading, how do they seek to solve the problem of a disordered and rebellious creation against the God who made it? So you want to be able to see the storyline that happens here. If you look at Genesis 1 and 2 rather quickly, and as you read this, you might look at this. God's creation brings ordering to creation. In all of the ancient Near Eastern stories of creation or how the world came to be, there are violent stories. There's chaos. There's gods fighting gods and throwing things and cutting people up and casting things out. They're all chaos stories. And what you have different in this worldview of the Bible is a story of not chaos, but bringing order out of chaos. You have God speaking, and things are brought to order. Even the poetry of chapters 1 and 2 has symmetry, and you get, oh, this was the first day, this was the second day, this was the third day. All of it sounds like it, and God saw that everything was good. See, God made everything and saw everything good. He rests, which is a sign that everything's complete and just as it should be. And then he created humanity last, and he gave them authority over his creation to keep the order of creation. That's the way that it's meant to be. Genesis 1 and 2 set up the whole story and say, this would be the perfect world. This would be the perfect world. And so what happens to that? You may want to ask yourself, how does this, the God of the Bible, how is he the same or different than other ancient Near Eastern gods who operate outside of this? How does the worldview of Genesis the same or different than other ancient Near East worldviews? And how is it the same or different than our contemporary worldviews? As we read Genesis 1 and 2, is this how we view the world as being perfect? Or do we view it in a different way? A good question to ask, because Genesis 1 and 2 is designed to challenge not just the ancient Near East, but those of us who read its text today, asking us what is a right way to see the world. If you look at the detailed kind of view of this, you see that chapters 1 and 2 are this ordering of the cosmos and the earth and ordering of human life. Humanity is made in the image of God. Everything is perfect and good. But in chapters 3 through 11, we see that there's sin and disordering of this ordered universe that God makes. And there's increasing brokenness in the world, increasing hurt and increasing disorder and expanding sin. And so in chapter 3, we get the first sin and its consequences with Adam and Eve, a story that's told. And Adam is Adam in Hebrew, and it means man. And Eve is a root of that means the woman. So you have humanity making a choice to reject God and his way of doing things. And then you have how this expands. So you have this one sin, but then that one sin has an effect on all of creation. So that Cain and Abel, the very next story, is a brother killing a brother. And then you get the wickedness of humankind and being so bad. By chapter 6, you get God wanting to destroy it all and start over because it is so bad. And so you get the Noah story. And so this is an attempt of God to change and start over. And then you get, even after the flood and after Noah comes out of the ark, you get people still rejecting God. The Tower of Babel is a story beyond all the specifics in it. It's about people who want to do things their way and not do things God's way. So you see this expanding sin. So if you want to summarize what the problem of sin is, if you want to understand the solution or what we need to heal a problem, you need to understand what the illness and the sickness is. What Genesis 3 does is it introduces us to what the problem really is. The problem of sin, I've summarized it in this way, that sin involves listening to a false voice. Humanity doesn't listen to God's voice, it listens to a voice other than God. The serpent, the woman, somebody else. I'm listening to somebody else, or we are listening to somebody else. Sin involves a false view of God. The temptation is, God's not taking care of you, or he either doesn't have the power or control to take care of you, or he doesn't care. He can't be trusted. You have to take care of yourself. God doesn't have the best interest of people in mind. Where we learned in chapter 1 and 2, that's not true. He had a perfect world. Sin involves a false view of self. Humanity responding to God with mistrust and disobedience, saying we must take control of our own life and gain control. We must take care of our own needs because God won't. A false view of sin, that there's no consequences to me living my own way, doing what I want. Even though God says in chapter 2 that it's a curse and there'll be death and separation, there's the belief that God's lying and good things will come if I do things that God doesn't tell me to do. And then there's the sin of false view of creation, where we use creation to meet our ends and to get our happiness and purpose. We're not really stewards of God's creation. So this is kind of an introduction to the problem of sin that God tries to solve in the rest of the Old Testament. So here we back to the chart that I showed you just a few minutes ago. The question is, how do our readings in the Torah or the Pentateuch in these first 5 books, how do the stories that are told about Noah and Abraham and Moses and all these stories that we'll come across in the Old Testament, how do they seek to solve the problem of sin? How do they seek to get the world back to the way God created it to be, a perfect world like it is in chapter 1 and 2? How does God deal with these problems of sin and listening to false voices, false views of God, false views of self, false views of sin, and false views of creation? So the whole Old Testament, whether it's the narrative stories, or whether it's the words of the prophet, or whether it's the poetry or some of the wisdom literature, all of these in their way are an attempt of God to woo back his creation, to reorder creation and bring it back. This is the worldview of the Old Testament, and this is why the story is written. So as we delve into the story and read it, look for answers to these kind of questions and ask yourself, is this the worldview that makes sense as we look at the world in which we live?